What do your spies tell you is happening over on the Arkansas?
Oh yeah, well, the arc is exploding as of this last week. So we had a really good season on the arc because the temperatures were pretty insulated. They received some moisture going into the winter, but they didn't have a lot of snow. And what was it, 3 weeks ago, they had really good midges and blowing olives popping off like crazy, the water levels being down. And whenever the Arkansas is cold in the high country up, when you're getting up towards the pass, it doesn't receive as much runoff. So it's remained fairly low. And as of yesterday, they're seeing just bunches of caddis all over the rocks too. So now it's a blowing olive caddis game with midges, and you've got the complex hatchies going off all day. It's really been fishing well. It's kind of like the hidden gem. Sometimes years in the past, the Arkansas goes up and down so many times, just like a roller coaster. But this year, it's been pretty level, and the reports and the videos of the caddis hatches are unbelievable. So you should be in good shape you could be all the way up in Salida, even above at the ranch, all the way down through Canyon City and then down through the gorge below. And it's been fishing well. Should be fun. Are you planning a trip out?
Well, I don't think I can get up there before summer, but I like to stay in touch.
Yeah, no, and it's good. It should be good in the summer, anytime to keep the water low like that going into the spring months. Usually the summer has more fish spread out throughout the system too. So it should be good from that respect. And I don't foresee us having a huge water year. Seems to be that we're on a normal track of, 140%. So we'll have good flows and it won't be overkill. They'll be worthwhile. It's always fun to get out and toss the dries.
Last year, the runoff ran all the way to the end of July. It was pretty ugly.
Yeah. And those years are fun, but it was too much flow last year. That's exactly right. We had to wait till August sometimes to get after the fish. I think this, out of the last 5 years, as a reference, this is probably the even path that we're looking for water that we haven't had in quite some time. So I would suspect runoff would be tapering down. If I were to be a betting man, probably by early July, late June, we'll start that taper down effect. And then it should level out by August, like years past, and we'll have some good seasonal fishing for terrestrials and whatnot into the fall. It'll be worthwhile.
Well,
and it's nice too, because then you can spread out.
Landon, what I do, it's kind of settled in that it looks like most people are here that are coming.
Cool. Well, hello, everybody.
I want to thank everybody that came out. Appreciate it. This is definitely our new record here. We had 33 people. What I'm going to do is kind of show a little video from Landon's latest video called Mastering the Short Game. And then I'll pass the baton over to you, Landon, and I can give you host privileges there. If you want to show us some stuff or anything, feel free.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. I'll tell you what, why don't we watch the trailer clip? I'll kind of introduce it. It's a video we put together over 3 years, and we designed the video to mimic and match what we would get out of a guide trip. And we're covering dries, nymphs, and streamers. And throughout the course of the video, we filmed in South America, Colorado, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee. So there's streamers, nymphs, and dries, from flies to rigging, you name it. It's all within 60 minutes. And after we watch it, if anybody has any questions about nymph fishing, streamer fishing, dry fly, sight fishing, anything I can help out, or any questions to answer, I'm happy to be here and help out anybody, and we'll cover as much that we possibly can. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Okay, let's start this over again.
That you catch are within 20 feet or less.
Yes.
That holds true no matter where you fish. Always look before you step. Look on the river's edge. Look before you fish. It is incredible how close you can get to the target, and exciting to watch that fish actively feed in its own natural environment. This is how you take yourself to the next level in this sport. Yes, look at that thumper, man. Lifting up at a 45-degree angle. Slap the flies. You want to always consider the strength of the fish. Slap it, mend it, drift it. Nice. Yes. My name is Landon Mayer. I've been a fly fishing guide in Colorado since 1997, and I specialize in teaching anglers how to hunt trophy trout. Day in and day out, one of the biggest challenges I help my clients overcome is presenting flies to feeding trout in close quarters. Just as in golf, where the game is won on the putting green, I think the ability to present flies, hook fish, fight fish, and land fish during these close encounters is what makes you a better angler. Just unbelievable. What an epic take. That fish is willing to come up. Let's try the edge now. Even though 60% of the trout's diet is found below the water's surface, you need to learn how to fish from the bottom to the top for consistent success. When the battle's on, every step of the fight is important. You're not searching the water, you're hunting for a particular fish. Whoa! It's not just about the number of fish that you catch, it's about the adventure and the pursuit. So come along with me as we cover essential tactics and techniques for moving in still waters that will help you take your game to the next level by mastering the short game.
Pretty awesome, huh? All right, listen. All right. So can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we're all back.
All right, good deal. Let's see.
Oh, Landon, you got to unmute your mic.
We had 3 more people show up.
There it is.
There you
I
go.
got it. Okay. No, thanks for sharing that. The cool thing about the video too is what the graphic designer did is they took a dozen flies for dries, a dozen for nymphs, and a dozen for streamers, and they're interactive to where it shows each fly and it talks about, so the fly comes into the screen and comes out. And then they actually made graphics being the rigs that are built up for each one of the seasons. So you can go back in each chapter, watch the 5-minute segment, and then it talks about rigging, presentation, all of it combined. But the one thing I learned about this video in trying to film it, the most challenging part about filming for fly fishing is being able to capture the take. So doing that with dry flies is one thing, but being able to do it with nymphs and streamers was a whole different animal. That's why it literally took almost 3 years. But that's what you get out of it too, is you get the chance to see the trout take the fly, just try to help out with the sight fishing aspect. But it was fun, and also some thrills and spills and falls and face plants along the way. There was no shortage of those. So if there's, and I was going to ask this question too, how many here fish a lot of streamers or have tried streamers as well for the spring?
Myself.
I've done a lot of streamers.
Yes.
Okay. That's the other thing that I really learned from the video, but also I've been trying to do a lot in the last 2 or 3 year old trips is fishing streamers. And there's so many different streamers available in the market, but that's one thing I've also learned in the low water and clear water, even when it's cold, if you slow the retrieve down, just how many fish are willing to come over and take. And that's what we're going to practice on my trips coming up next week as well. Does anybody have any questions in regards to streamers or just techniques for the spring or fly selection, even in that matter?
Yeah, what do you use on this? You fish a lot on the South Platte, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. What works there well?
So right now, I would say, and I'll pull out a couple boxes I have here too. The biggest thing right now in regards to the season and transitioning through is that a lot of our fish really do start getting on the feed pretty hard. It starts out with midges, and some of the midges that we'll use will be relatively small or large, but I'm a fan of starting out with midges that are black, brown, and red. And there's kind of an example.
Hold that closer to the camera so we can see it. Yeah.
So there's some of the selection with, you've got tube midges, you've got top secrets, some black beauties. And the biggest thing I find with the midge bite is that I'm a fan of starting out, I'll run red with black. And then if that doesn't work and I don't think the fish are on the attracting red, then I'll switch up and I'll go black and then I'll go brown, or I'll go brown and I'll go olive. And I'll really determine, the first thing is determining what the color is and then match the size. And for those of you who have traveled, and I know a lot of you have traveled to fish the different rivers in the winter and spring, it's also surprising just how big the midges are. Some of these midges that we're seeing from November all the way through April and May, they can, no joke, be a size 16 or a size 18 midge. Some of the larger midges I've ever seen are found during the winter season. And I'd say for us, a realistic size is about 18 for the large. And then the smaller size will go down to about the ones on the bottom, which are the 24s. So we'll go anywhere from 18 to 24, but it starts with color, and then I work down from color and I go down to size. So color and size. And then the other thing we started doing is, in addition to the midges, the next thing I look for are, when the fish on the South Platte at least start to look at Baetis, the blueing olive bite. And that can start for us around, I would say a good time frame is typically the first week in April. So we're starting to see the blueing olives really pop. And this one's been picked through a little bit, but you can see some of the blueing olive selections as well. We have some of the stall cup Baetis, the chocolate foam wing emerger, the bars emerger. And those are a lot of the pheasant tail. Just a classic pheasant tail and regular and flashback can also be very effective. But those are selections. So if it were myself and I was going out to fish with any one of you today, I would use 3 flies. I would use a pheasant tail or a stall cup Baetis as a main blueing olive nymph. And then I would trail below that a midge larva, which is down on the bottom, typically in red or black. And then if I was going to use an emerging imitation, I would either do a brown midge, or where my finger is on this row, I would do a chocolate foam wing emerger. And the reason for that is once those blueing olives start to hatch or are moving towards the surface, a lot of those fish really do key in on them. Even if it gets blown off because of wind, those are kind of some of the go-to in regards to the imitations we'll be using right now.
Great.
And the other thing too is when you're, what's that?
I was going to ask you a question about the theme of fishing close. Are you fishing to fish that you obviously can see, or are you fishing also to locations where you reasonably expect a fish to lay?
That's two great that's a great question, and two very, very valid points. In that the last trip I did before all of this really hit, and the trips I have coming up in the low water years is what I call it, a lot of my clients are now reaching out to answer those questions as well. And it's a great topic because I always start out looking for water that I believe is productive. So I still read water. And then once I find water that has cover, oxygen, and food supply, those are the 3 things that I look for. And it doesn't matter where I am, whether it's a freestone, a tailwater, still water. When I find those zones, then I'll look in to the areas and I'll dissect the run, or I'll dissect that piece of water. So for example, if I found a productive run and at the head of the run there was a riffle, then it dropped off to a deep bucket, and then I had the tail out, that run, even if it was only 300 yards wide, I could literally use the techniques within that run. So I would start at the bottom, look for fish, move to the prime holding line in the middle, and then the shallow riffles feeding line. But that could literally take us 45 minutes to dissect that whole run. So the answer is absolutely look for productive water that have cover, oxygen, and food, and then you look for signs of trout actively feeding. And on that note, one other thing to remember, because we run into this all the time, I would say that half the fish I'm seeing now on very public and crowded waters, no matter where you fish in the U.S., it's popular. Fly fishing's really grown quite a bit. The public water and the pressured water that are known to hold quality trout, more of these fish are actually moving in between the deeper runs. So instead of holding tight in a conventional zone, you could be walking between runs and then all of a sudden you see this large fish and it's holding to where it almost looks out of place. I believe those fish are doing that just to get used to new areas where they can feed and they don't feel the pressure.
Landon, you're fishing 2 nymphs on there. Are you contact fishing or are you using indicators?
Yeah, great question. So it's typically 3 different ways that we'll approach the run. The way that runs are broken down, for me at least, is I like to think of them as deep buckets, the cup half full, and then shallow water. And if I'm fishing shallow water at the head of a run, I'm typically swinging into the deep water. So I'll use contact by swinging. If I'm fishing the deep bucket, I'll do a Euro style or a contact rig with a sider, tippet ring, or swivel, and then I'll pull my way through the deeper sections of the run. And then for the tail out, what I found myself doing the last few years is just adding indicators to the section of the sider, and I can do indicator fishing on the tail out where it's really slow and I need to suspend the rig. I don't want it to touch the bottom because those fish are in pretty froggy or flat waters. So I'll do those 3 setups, but 2 of them at the top in the middle of the run, there is contact to the rig and contact to the drift.
So why would you pull the rig through? You mentioned just a moment ago that you would pull the rig through. Why would you pull the rig through rather than let the natural current take it through?
Yeah, well, it's a mix of both. Like we'll do a normal drift. Like let's say I have a deep bucket with structure. I'll let it drift normal with the speed of the current around the structure. But if a good example of pulling it through as far as keeping contact, and you're not pulling it to where you're taking away from the drift, you're just keeping more contact than normal. And a good example of that is if both of my fists were 2 boulders, and within these 2 boulders, I need to get a drift in between, or I need to manipulate around structure deep in the run.
Okay.
Then I'll contact and I'll semi-lead, just like you're leading a dog on a leash, or pull it through those structure points, allowing there to be a drift, but most importantly, preventing from snagging one of those spots.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. 2 good ways to fish. And I think, there's so many good ways and so many inventive ways now where people are coming up with their own ideas on how to set up nymph rigs. I like to break it down by depth control and just making sure that whatever rig you decide to go with, whether it be dead drift, contact where you're vertical, or contact horizontal where you're swinging, you just have confidence and use that technique over and over again so you can try to master it and really understand what's happening when you do get a take. So now I'm jonesing the fish. Every time I do this, I start like getting a little antsy and start sweating like I got to get to the water.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, Landon, if you were, when you're not working in Colorado guiding, where do you like to go fish? Do you have a hot spot you like?
That's a great question. One of my favorite locations to go when we're here at the house is actually 11 Mile Canyon. Going up with my wife Michelle and the kids, breaking away. That's where we like to go to get away from the house and have fun. And that's also a spot where I learned to fly fish. And I have a really deep-rooted respect for that fishery because as a kid growing up, 11 Mile Canyon was put and take. And as I was in my teenage years and learning how to tie and really learning some of the tips and tricks from other great mentors like Ed Engel, they were fighting to make the top half catch and release. So now the first 2 miles or 2.5 miles of the canyon are catch and release. But I love 11 Mile Canyon because it's beautiful. It has a lot of diversity in the trout, and it's also technical and very clear. So I think personally, out of all of our fisheries, 11 Mile Canyon can visually make you a better trout hunter or sight fisher too. So that's one of my favorites to go to.
All right.
I know Ed Ingles the same. Like there, any given day, if you go up there in June, July, and August, you'll see Ed fishing tricos.
Yeah. It's
Landon, what are the
telling me that you and Ed and he and Jason had been talking about this concept of the Three Amigos doing a tour.
Yeah. Yes.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. And no, it's going to be fun. We're still in the works, so that's definitely going to happen. We just don't know if we're going to do it at the shows or if we're going to do it to independent clubs like yourselves. But we definitely going to start traveling and doing that. Probably, if not this coming year, because of what just happened the year after. It's going to come together. It'll be fun.
All right.
Landon, what's the water temperature that you're fishing in now, pretty much?
Oh, good question. We were taking temps the other day. We took some time to take the thermometer. By the way, a question that popped up a couple days ago via email. Somebody asked me how I take temperature. So I take my thermometer and I put a little carabiner on it, and I actually clip it to the front of my net, and I stick my net into the water at about 3 feet, 2.5 to 3 feet, to determine the best temperature for the level the trout are feeding. And if you do that with the fish pond thermometer, you get a clear, accurate reading. Some of the digital thermometers are great, but a lot of those are surface-based. So you just want to make sure that you're getting down to that deeper level. And right now, the best temperature to start with is 45 degrees. Once the rivers reach 45 and start to climb into the 50s, and I say right now we're probably getting temps in the 52 range. The advantage there is that the fish are now transitioning from migration and the spawn, and they're starting really to acclimate to the water and the hatches. So my prime temperatures are anywhere from 47 to 53 degrees right now. That's optimal temperature.
I really like fishing streamers.
Yeah.
What am I looking for in water temperature? Does it need to be 55 or
great
thereabouts?
question. Yeah, I would for streamer fishing, or the prime temperature to really get the fish starting to transition that we found, and we learned this at Pyramid Lake most importantly, is 50 degrees. Mm-hmm. Once you hit 50, the fish really start to get, they start putting their feet on, but it's almost like their aggression starts to take over and they're willing to chase. So some of these fish I think are so cold, they'll see a streamer and kind of swim over, and they may take it or just investigate, swim off. But when you have 50, it seems like they're really committed to coming over. And that's my main temperature I'm looking for. Whether it's still waters or rivers, 50 degrees gets those fish active.
Am I going to catch as many fish swinging as I am with the nymph in 50 or 55 degree water?
Yeah, you'll probably, for the streamer bite, you definitely will not catch as many fish as you would using the nymphs. I would say the nymph game right now, because the hatches are so immense below the surface. But a good way to look at streamer fishing instead of just drifting nymphs, in my opinion, would be, think of it like a number 4 batter on a baseball team. You're batting cleanup. So you go through the rotation, right? The first 3, and then 4 batter comes up. And when I was a kid, it was the Bash brothers, McGuire and Jose Canseco. And those guys come through and they're getting ready to hit the home run. That's the way I think of fly fishing and runs when I'm using disciplines. If I have a client out and we're doing dries and nymphs, before we leave, come in with streamers.
Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely.
Landon, what about the idea of when you tackle a stream, or you see one, of taking your net and a seine and uncovering rocks, do a little shuffling with a friend, and look what's under the rocks? Does that work?
It does, but I tell you, in my opinion, the best way to seine the water, the best way to find out if you're matching what food supply is there outside of a throat pump. And a throat pump is the tube you stick in the fish's mouth. Some people are against it. Some people are for it. I personally don't use the throat pump, not because I don't think you can do it effectively without harming the fish, but I like the nuance of trying to figure out what is going on in front of my eyes and what's unfolding in front of me with the hatch. I try to match the hatch. And by doing that without looking at the fish's direct food, it allows me and forces me to think about the hatch more. Instead of seining, though, when I do a class, I'll seine 2 ways. So when I do a class, if I'm showing you the bugs, I'll have somebody go upriver and kick their feet around, and I'll capture the bugs. If I'm seining on a trip to find out what's going on, I build the seine to where all you do is get metal or wooden pegs on either side of a piece of mesh netting, and you have them extend 2 feet on the top and bottom of the mesh, and you actually stake the seine in the river and then leave it there for 5 minutes.
Wow.
And don't go upstream and manipulate the line. Just let it sit there so that you can capture what's drifting down. That's one of the tricks that we use, and that way you know what food supply is drifting. You're not just kicking up what's on the bottom, and a lot of times without high flows, those food supplies on the bottom are not as abundant as they would appear if you were to shuffle above the seine. So that's the 2 ways that we'll do it.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Leighton, Ed here. I'm a novice, so I have a question about midges in a box.
Okay.
I tie them, but then I don't have them very well organized. Any suggestions in terms of color and size, how you would do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're organizing your box, the best way to think of your box is how you would approach the day. And I would start at the top of your box, start out with your largest flies, and then work your way down to the smallest. And you can do that 2 ways. You could do it where you have rows of sizing, or you could do it where you have different sizes for each color. So I would recommend the top of the box be black midges, the middle of the box be red, the bottom of the box can be brown olive. And then that way you're covering the 3 combos that are the most common, and then just adjust your size from there. On the other side of your box, that is not the midge, the pupa, or the pupating midge, just have your dry flies on the opposite sleeve. So you have 2 sleeves that open up. One's going to be your subsurface, and the other one's going to be your dry flies. That technique in its own self and right is probably one of the most effective ways to keep organized, because it forces you to go through what's in front of your face. I find that if you have just a variety of midges and they're scattered in your box, or if you have too many midges, it takes away from being able to have confidence in making the right selection. That's why I typically set my box up that way.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely.
Landon, I know again, people were asking about what's your favorite water, but with all of this pandemic nonsense going on, besides, my name's Steve, by the way, I've got company called Nomada Fly Fishing, and so we do hosted trips and travel. But regardless of that, I've canceled a whole bunch of trips because of that. So me and the wife have got some free time coming up. If we were to be able to just haul the RV up and kind of stake out home base in Colorado for a week and a half or 2, is there an area where where's ground zero where you want to park and then branch out from there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would be central. If it were I would go someplace like what we were talking about a little bit earlier with the Arkansas River. That's a great location because you're pretty much central. If you were in Buena Vista, you're centrally located to where you could branch off, and let's say you want to go hit the Blue or the Eagle, you can just go straight over the pass, drop down to I-70, and you can go from the Blue all the way to the Colorado. It also gives you access to the southern side of the state where you could be on the Arkansas River. You could be down and going to the southern side of the state, the Rio, all of that. And then if you came over east, you would be on the waters where I'm guiding most of the time, the South Platte and the Front Range. So I would say Salida or Buena Vista. Salida is probably, in Canyon City, are probably a little bit more accommodating than Buena Vista would be because it's a smaller town. But all those 3 locations are the best central locations.
There's a nice campground there too, Steve, at Buena Vista. I stayed at a couple of years ago, and I tried to hook up with Landon, but he was busy doing, I think, a video at that time.
Yeah, we were filming then.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, but it's a good location, and I would definitely recommend trying, from that spot too. You could go, depending on when are you planning on coming down, Steve?
I'm thinking in maybe June or July.
June or July, okay. Yeah, if you did June or July, you're still in good shape, and you can have access to the water. It wouldn't be I would probably say July is a safer bet.
Okay.
Just because you'll have some runoff in June. It won't be horrible, but for the sake of the Arkansas, mid-June and some of the other fisheries like the Eagle and the Blue, I would say mid-June's a little too early, but mid-July is playing a safer card.
Yep. Sounds good.
And it's worth it. You'll love it. There's so many waters. I mean, you'll honestly probably leave and end up booking another trip because you need to hit more waters, which is cool. So yeah, but it's all great fisheries too. You'll enjoy them.
Nice.
All right, I'm going to do a little, real quick, guys. I'm going to do a little photo so I can send this to you too. It's kind of cool to capture the moment. It's amazing how you can do these fun things now with, like we discussed a bit earlier, Zoom and everything else. But I commend you guys for what you're doing in the club and gals and everybody involved, because this is a really nice way to stay connected. And I appreciate you reaching out on that too, John, because I think we can all share information. And to be honest, we might be a little bit more creative now because we're forced in our homes and we're not on the water as much as we normally would be. So it kind of gets those creative juices flowing too.
Yeah, that's really true. You know, we've had a lot of success in the first 3 months of the year before the pandemic hit. The club was growing by leaps and bounds, and so you know, this really helps us keep connected, and makes us hungry for fishing.
Absolutely, man. I know, and I think for the sake of myself too, what I've really tried to work on is, as we talked about just a minute ago, organizing boxes. I've been doing quite a bit more work on the vise and thinking about different flies, and then just organizing my gear as well. Some of the time that we don't have because we get busy in our everyday lives, but taking advantage of those moments is a big deal. And I think too, for the sake of the fisheries, it's going to be a good year. It seems to be building up to where the U.S. is not going to be flooded and pouring water and rain and high runoff. It could come later, but as far as normalcy and flow and snowpack nationwide, it seems to be in a good place right now.
Well, as I offered to Jason and Jeff last week, I know this has probably been tough on your business guiding, and if there's anything we can do to help, we'd be more than glad to partner with you on something. And
yeah, I appreciate that. No, it has been a challenge, but from my point of view and perspective, I personally I've done some article work, so I have some nice articles coming out with the magazines to help give back, and I'm fortunate where my wife Michelle and our kiddos, my wife's an avid angler like myself, and we share our free time on the water, and just being that, it's nice too, because somebody was mentioning to me today, and I wanted to make this point. There's a lot of positives. If I were to look at my life 2 years ago and the 12 months and how busy I would normally be, I can't honestly say that I remember a time where in the middle of busy season, I have 30 days where I can stay home, be with my family, take care of things at the house. And it's a refresher. It's stressful financially, but I've just really believed in trying to find the positives. So that's why I think meetings like this and locations where we can think about fishing in the future definitely help. So I appreciate you reaching out, and we've got some good stuff. It looks like I'm going to be seeing a lot of you next spring. So I'm excited about coming out and visiting with everybody again. And I'll have a new tying book that I'm working on. My deadline's May 1. So I've been taking studio step tie photos, and May 1st is my deadline. So I have 30 more, and I'll have taken 500 photos of flies and vices. So I'll be able to see straight after that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and Bill can probably answer this too, but it's March, isn't it, when you're coming out?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Coming out in March, and I'm doing 2 clubs when I come out, and then we had discussed, and I know John, you mentioned this as well, but I was thinking of doing a tying class in between, but it doesn't have to be a tying class where you have to tie to be in the class. It can be a tying class to where when I tie the fly, somebody can be there in the room tying as well. But I speak through each one of the steps, and I talk about the flies and how to fish them. So it's a benefit to all anglers of all skill levels, tying or not tying. And I think we're going to try to work one of those classes in between the 2 events or the following day. So it's going to be March, and I know it'll be nice and warm and balmy compared to back home. So I'm excited.
Landon, this is Bill Odenschlager.
Hi.
And I've got you set up for February.
February. Hold on one second here. Let's look at, can you pull up the exact dates? I just don't have the calendar in front of me.
It would be February 11th.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Yes, because you have Pat's coming in March, correct?
Pat Dorsey.
Correct.
Right, that's
That's
right.
Yeah,
correct.
okay. Yep. So yeah, I apologize. It's February. We're not going to do March because Pat's coming. So that means you're going to get a double whammy from Colorado. You guys will get some good info.
Well, we love Colorado.
No, it's great, and we love your clubs, and we love getting away as well. And we might pull the trailer down too, depending on how much time we have. The family might come out and join me. So if that's
Hold
the
on,
case,
then
I'll
I'm
be
trying to be back and forth on this thing with your dad.
What is that?
Oh my!
I just muted him.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Hey, Bev Wayne,
Sound like a good song.
video. I muted you.
Well, one good side about the pandemic is maybe some of those Colorado fishermen on the San Juan will understand what real spacing is.
Yeah, no, it's true. Well, the San Juan, and you're exactly right. I think there's a lot of fisheries. That's a good point. There's a lot of fisheries that were forced to close down, and the advantage there is that those fish definitely get a break where those fisheries deserve them. So that's for sure. I know they closed the San Juan and they closed some other very popular fisheries, and that's a well-deserved break for the fishery itself. So 30 days of rest is going to be awesome.
Amen.
Yeah, and it needs it. I mean, the other thing I've learned too, in being a teacher of this sport and a full-time outfitter, I try to do things a lot throughout the course of the year. We have a very big Clean the Dream event where we go out for one day and we pick up trash, and we have a big party gathering. There's a lot of giveaways. But I've also over the years learned to respect and rest water, which is one of the things that I now navigate with my schedule of trips, is I don't just do the trip, I actually navigate what waters to rest and leave alone and when to come back. Because the difference in how trout behave when they're resting, even if you have a crowded river and everybody's fishing the same spots every day and you find that one big fish, you can also do the same thing with that fish. You can rest it. You can try it for a day. Nobody's seeing the fish. It's kind of like your hidden trout, your hidden trophy, and then rest it a couple days, come back. And that's a thought process that really has worked over the years and something to think about as well.
Very right.
And if there's anything else too, I wanted to share with you guys before our hour's up. If there's anything else that pops up too, I'm not opposed to setting up and doing one of these again as well as we move in. I thought maybe, John, a good idea is maybe some conference calls with us as we move into the summer months, and we'll have some more normalcy with our everyday lives, but then we'll be in a different season with flow and water, and I'm sure some different techniques will pop up as well.
That's a great idea. And Dave Mel and I think Dave's on the call now here, but Dave Mel and I have been talking about trying to figure out how to do some education on using Zoom.
Yeah.
So where you could tie it live online while we're watching you tie it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's different ways and avenues. I think next time, one of the things I've done, I just did one with Scientific Anglers. We did a hour-long feed video with Scientific Anglers and Fly Lords, and I concentrated and was really emphasizing on rigging. So like we did tonight, I showed some boxes, but then I demonstrated rigging and kind of talked through it and talked through some of the fishing scenarios. So that's something we could do for the summer months for sure.
Great. And I'm sure you'll be exposed to some other people around the country that'll have some other great ideas. So if you see a good idea you want to share with us, we'll be glad to hear it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm happy to share it. And as I mentioned, I'm excited about coming out in February, and others too that are getting involved with this. I'll for sure share the information. And I really do appreciate everybody's support and willingness to hop on the phone call too, man. It's been awesome.
Great job. Great job.
Thanks, Landon.
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate everybody. I wish everybody well and stay safe and healthy, and I'll be there seeing everybody soon. And if there's anything I can help with too, or you guys are interested in trips or just general information too, don't hesitate to reach out to the website, LandonMareFlyFishing.com. I'll be here until until May 1st, and then I'm going to start going pretty much full speed ahead. But if you can't contact me directly, you can always email me, and I'll get back to you.
Thanks again.
What's that website again?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's oh, you're welcome, guys. It's landonmayerflyfishing@gmail.com.
Or is there a website?
Yeah, that's my website. So if you go to that, that's the website. And then once you get to the website, there's a contact page. Just click on the contact page and it'll go through a menu bar, ask a question, book a trip, general information. Just scroll in there and then leave your message and it'll come right to me.
Perfect.
You bet. Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you. And I really do appreciate you setting this up too, John. And you all are class acts, and I can't wait to see you sooner than later.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Thanks, Landon.
Absolutely,
Thanks, Landon.
guys.
Appreciate it.
And
Take
thanks,
care.
John,
Thanks so
for
much.
setting this up.
Bye-bye.
That may not have seen the last blast we sent out. You'll see it in the newsletter for sure in the next 2 months. But we have set up Larry has done a great job of setting us up with the campgrounds out at Woods Canyon Lake, and we're calling it the Return of the Fly, Rim Rampage. So what we're going to do is kind of use Woods Canyon Lake as our hub, and from there there's a bunch of lakes and a bunch of creeks around there that we can fish, and kind of use that as our hub point, and hopefully have a good outing in June. Hopefully things will be open enough that we can get up there. I went up there a couple weeks ago, and the lake's open. The campgrounds aren't open yet, but I think May 1st they're supposed to open them up. Is that right, Larry?